Hello, everybody. Yeah, as an astrologer, I kind of look at charts all the time, and one of the factors that I have been utilizing in the descriptions that I go week by week is an actual look at the astrological chart. And my gut tells me that probably the majority of you don't have a working understanding of just what exactly that chart is. And when you look at it, it's just kind of like looking at something that is in a foreign language. And the reality is, astrology is a foreign language until you get to learn it. So, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring up a chart for this is a chart for Monday morning. And I'm going to take you on a whirlwind tour of the astrology for the week. But right off the bat, you look at this graph here, this mandala of the chart, and this is for 7:48 in the morning on Monday morning, the 14th. And you may not know what all these symbols represent, but the symbols around in this outer circles, these are the signs of the zodiac. And nothing stays static. This is something really to pay attention to with astrology. The signs, they all stay in the order that they're in, and the planets have a tendency, they move around the chart in this direction. Whereas the reality is that the chart is actually rolling in this direction, which actually gives you the appearance that the planets are going around in this direction. I'm going to show you that very shortly. But right now, this is Capricorn. This is the symbol for Capricorn. And in Capricorn, we have Mars and Venus. You can kind of see that they're right together. Pluto and Mercury fairly close together with each other. So we've got these four planets in Capricorn. We step into our Aquarius. We have the Saturn, and we're in the Aquarius season right now. So sun, but you can kind of see the sun is at 25 degrees of Aquarius. So basically there are, on Monday, there will be 5 more days left of Aquarius before we shift over the border and into the land of Pisces, which is where Jupiter and Neptune are. These are the two rulers of Pisces, traditional and modern. The next sign is Aries. You can kind of see that the houses vary in size in the system that I use. And Chiron is there in Aries. Chiron is a unique thing. I talked about Chiron a bit in last week's report. We go on into Taurus, and the planets move at different rates. Like Pluto is the slowest planet that I'm showing to you. It takes 246 years for it to make a complete orbit. And Neptune takes about 150 years to make a complete orbit. And finally, Uranus down here, I wonder why it doesn't want to circle. Anyway, Uranus down here takes 84 years to make a complete orbit. And then the signs that are out here going around in this large space where there isn't anything, these are the nodes of the moon. And they represent points in space where the orbit of the moon and the earth and our trajectory around the sun all come together. And anyway, the moon, as you can kind of see, is out here making the circuit around here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play you what the chart looks like as it moves through the week. Now, I'm just going to give you a warning right off the top. This is going to make your head spin. The reality is, here in the center of the chart is Earth. This is us. You can picture yourself. You're here in the middle, and when I start this chart in motion, let me just start the chart in motion for one day. Okay, I've got this chart going at at 15 minutes per second. So what you will notice is that when people say something is rising, this is the rising moment, the eastern part of the chart. This is the western part of the chart. So this is where the sun rises. So when you look at this chart right now, the sun is risen. It's above the horizon. And you'll see when I start moving the chart that the planets will actually start to go around in this direction. What's actually happening is the Earth, we're rotating in this direction. What makes it seem like the planets are going backwards, they're really still moving forward. I know it seems confusing, but when I put the chart in motion, you'll get a feel for it, because let's just do a day so you can kind of get the feel for it. And when I'm doing astrology, I'm looking at these kind of charts all the time. So I pay attention to this particular kind of movement. Let's go. Day one. This is Monday, and Monday is going to take place relatively quickly. So brace yourselves. You can kind of see the sun over here. The sun's going down now. And here we are, we're in the nighttime, and then the sun rises. Now we're in Tuesday. And it's gone now. The sun is just about to go down. So this is 4:30 in the afternoon on Tuesday. And you can kind of see, and that the chart is based on where I am. And depending on where you are on the planet, the variances are going to be different. But one thing that you might have seen, this is in a day and a half of using a chart, is that everything's in motion all the time. You're still right here in the middle. This is where planet Earth is. And so let's just run it through the rest of the week. And the reason I'm doing this is because you're not, when I'm doing the charts normally as part of my experiences, it's a foreign language to you, so you're lost, and rightly so. You should be lost. So I'm going to basically allow the chart to go for the week. So in this week, and you kind of see the sun is going around, it makes its daily circuit. The moon is moving as well, and you can kind of see the moon just went into Virgo, and it's going through Virgo right now. We're still in Aquarius, and we're on Thursday. See how the week is moving along at a clip. You can kind of see the rising sign keeps changing every 2 hours. This sign changes on the cusp here, and that's because the Earth is rotating, and this is the point that's eastward from where we are in space, and it's going to change to accommodate whatever's there looking due east. Okay. That was the week. How about that for a head spin? And you should be slightly confused trying to follow that. And I would be, if I didn't know astrology, I might be confused by that as well. But I know that that's a actual representation in 2 dimensions on the screen here of what's transpiring as we go through each week, and actually in this case, through the next week of the astrological dance. So I'm going to do something just slightly different this week. I'm going to look at the things that astrologically are transpiring and give you a definition, description more along those lines. I don't really need to show you the chart, because mostly, and if anybody wants to look things up in the chart, you can go to astro.com and put in whatever particular chart information you want to put in. Let me go back just a second. Nah, forget the chart. We're going to just do the dance. Monday starts the week, and we kind of got a quick glance at what Monday's like. One of the things that we see, remember when I pointed that Mars and Venus were right there beside each other in that chart? Mars and Venus these are the masculine and feminine principles. And, the old saying, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, as if to portray the fact that, for every woman, Venus is the most important planet, and there really is maybe no such thing as Mars in their makeup. And Mars, the same thing, is Mars is a man, and for Mars, who's got time to play with Venus? And that's all a bunch of hooey, because uh, that mandala of where all the planets are is a representation of each of those planets, which is a part of us. They represent an energy signature that is at play within us all the time. We all have a Mars playing somewhere in our makeup. We all have a Venus playing somewhere in our makeup, and a Jupiter and a Mercury. And each one of those planets has a, a certain set of clothing that they put on as a representation of what it is that they stand for. So as this particular next week begins, Mars and Venus are dancing together. And the reason I bring that up is because they're doing a rather unique dance right now. And what it is it's bringing into the fore that Martian part of us and that Venus part of us they're dancing right together. So those two energies are, it's a dance. They're toying with each other. That masculine part of us and that feminine part of us are each in play in a unique fashion that we can't just separate them automatically and say, oh, my Mars is doing this and my Venus is doing that. You can, but at this particular point, those two energies are entwined within each other. And one factor that may surface for a lot of people right now is that the field of relationship is being energized with Martian energy. As Venus, I'll read the first paragraph of what I printed out here. Mars, over this last weekend, the one that we just went through, has just come back in from being out of bounds. And out of bounds planet means that the planet has it, because the planets wander, and they wander up and down, and out of bounds means it's gone beyond the control factors of the sun and Saturn. Saturn is limitations. And when a planet is out of bounds, it's kind of like, I don't really need to pay attention to what, Saturn says are the limitations right now, because my visual capacity, my energetic experience senses that there's something else that's beyond those control factors of the sun and Saturn. Anyway, Mars just came back into bounds, where it has been for the last month. Since mid-January, it went out of bounds. So as far as all of us go, that Martian energy, which is, the warrior principle that can either be a warrior and, stir a whole lot of trouble up, but it also can be the protector, which, sometimes requires a little bit of that Martian warrior energy to actually stand up for something that is a principle that needs to be respected, needs to be protected and stuff. Anyway, Monday is the perfection of that aspect between Mercury and Venus. And the Mercury, or it's Mars and Venus, that aspect is going through a unique experience right now that is long. It's unique in the fact that Venus has just recently come out of retrograde, so it's moving slowly. Mars is, charging right along, but Venus is going to be picking up speed as we go forward. Mars during this week will catch up with Venus, and it will be traveling with Venus all the way into early March. I don't have the exact date, but these two energies are in play together and will stay in play together for another 2 to 3 weeks. And as they do that, that energy of, how we play our masculine Mars, yang type energy, and how we might play our feminine receptive yin type energy are going to, they're going to be toying with each other. The whole experience of, how our relationship experience is going to play out is going to have, it's going to have those moments where there's heat, that Mars comes into the equation, and there will be the Venusian perspective that wants to, it wants to put a value on things. How much is this relationship experience worth to me right now? And is that Martian energy that Martian part of me going to allow that energy to be kicked up, and be a little bit more vivacious, energetic? And, I think if I were to give one example of this particular type of energy and play the Mars Venus together, by all means, if you get the opportunity, and we all have the opportunities, flirt. And I use that term flirt very specifically. Toy, play with the process of how you interact with other people, so that you can provide a wider parameter, or a wider field of experience to have with one another that isn't always necessarily comfortable, but it will broaden the capacities of what it is that you can share with other people in very unique fashion. Okay, later on Monday, which if we just think back to that chart that I put up, Mercury, how we think and how we communicate, has just recently been dancing after its retrograde cycle across Pluto, and Mercury, how we think, how we communicate, the experience of curiosity is, and Pluto is the energy of Pluto, and this is for general purposes. Pluto is probably the most intense energy that exists in the entire planetary milieu. And the reason I bring that up, and the part of the intensity factor that Pluto stands for, is Pluto stands for death. And you bring up death in any conversation that we have one with another, and people get a little edgy. We're all going to die. I mean, you can't ignore that fact, but people are not in any hurry to not only rush that experience, but to even have a conversation about it, which is kind of unfortunate, because particularly in our Western culture, the process of initiation, which is it's an invitation for a much more profound level of personal awareness that is potential for each of us to become aware of, is often hidden away. And the reason I say it's hidden away is because there are rare moments in a modern Western cultural life where it is recognized that we are invited into some level of initiation, where, I'm going to bring the death thing back in there. So just brace yourselves. No need to get too out of kilter about this, but true initiation is an invitation to come just that much closer to the death experience. And one of the reasons most people fear death is because it has been portrayed in our Western culture as a, the door closes. There's a terminal point where things end and stuff. And, Pluto's perspective on death, which we're talking about Pluto now here, is that Pluto comes to remind us of the natural experience of being alive, which includes that transitional death factor. And if you really think about it, what Pluto is actually doing is Pluto takes all those parts of us, all those experiences that we've had, and it composts them, the ones that are really no longer useful to us, even though we may still be clinging to them. And this is where the discomfort often appears when the Pluto factor enters any equation, is that it is Pluto's searching for those parts of any experience that have outlived their usefulness so that they can be recycled. If you really think about the process of just being a human person on planet Earth, we are made up. 100% of our physical being is made up of the elements of the earth. And we recycle stuff all the time. Pluto's just a little more intense in how it goes about that recycling process. And it can become uncomfortable if we lose sight of the fact that Pluto is saying, hey, the reason that I'm doing what I'm doing is so that we can get stuff out of the way that's cluttering the path of your discovering what it really means to be alive, to percolate, to take some of that Martian energy that's all part of us and kick the fire up underneath what it is that we're living, so that we can actually, vibrantly, enjoy the experience of being alive. There will be challenges, as there always is, in the process of being a human in this particular incarnational journey that we're doing in the physical realm of Earth journey. That's just the way it is. Some get a little bit more challenged, others maybe not so much, but we all get challenged back along the way. All along the way. Anyway, Mercury, just how we think, how we communicate, what our sense of adventure and curiosity might be, just did a dance with, it's been dancing with Pluto for a couple of weeks, really close by. So in that dance, that how we think and how we communicate and what we're curious about has been able to touch the edges of that plutonic substance in a unique fashion where we, have been required, maybe not the most comfortably, about what it is that is possibly ready to be let go of, what it is that it might be ready to terminate its physical journey on planet Earth and step across the platform into something else. And the terrifying thing of death is that we've had implanted through our educational process in our minds a very limited story of what it means to actually be a soul, which is that spark of life, spirit, soul, the spark of life that animates this physical vehicle and utilizes this skin sac to be able to go and do things and experience things in the physical experience of Earth life. On Monday, we have, remember I spun that chart around for the whole entire week. Well, on Monday, Mercury actually transitions from being in Capricorn back into Aquarius, where it had been before it went retrograde and went back into Capricorn. So our thought processes, in Capricorn, the thought processes have a tendency to be perhaps a little more linear and not inclined to step beyond the lines of containment. There's a very Capricornian kind of a feel, but when Aquarius energy is stirring the pot of our thoughts, there's a little bit more excitement in the air, in that there's potential for nuance and invention and innovation that it tickles our creativity in a way that says, from a Capricorn perspective, there are rules and regulations that say things need to be done in a certain fashion for whatever reason. We won't quite get into that right now. In Aquarius, this isn't really quite the same, because in investigating the Mercury in our curiosity sends us on quests to figure out why this is so and so. And after a while, you have a lot of these whys answered. And because of that, you've got basically available to you different potential scenarios of what could transpire if you mix ingredient A and ingredient B and throw in an ingredient Z into the equation. That, who would have thought of putting a Z into an A and B equation? Well, I guarantee you it would be that Aquarius part of us. And that's one thing that I should have mentioned to begin with, is that we're made up of all 12 of those signs, and they're all at play in unique fashion within us. See, we don't need to chart. Okay. What else have we got going here? Saturn is the ruler of both Capricorn and Aquarius, and currently it's in Aquarius. I'm checking some notes here to make sure I don't miss anything. The true dynamic that's going on this week. The Saturn factor that's at play as both ruler for Capricorn and Aquarius. When Saturn's in Aquarius, which is where it is right now, my version of Saturn is more along the lines that Saturn is a loosening of the belt to experiment with options likely not easily tolerated within the Capricorn rules and regulation zone. It's still Saturn. It still has a concern for the field of containment. It's just a little looser around the edges, thus the loosening of the belt idea. Wednesday this week, Wednesday, oh, by the way, the days of the week, each of the days of the week is related to one of the 7 traditional planets, which are basically the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Those are the 7 days of the week. Monday is Moon Day. Sounds real similar. Tuesday's a Mars Day. When I was putting together my notes. Wednesday, which is the day we're about to talk about, is a Mercury Day, Miércoles in Spanish, Mercury. Uh, Thursday is a Jupiter Day, Jueves. Friday is a Venus Day, Viernes. Saturday is a Saturn Day. It almost sounds like it. Sábado. And Sunday, Domingo, the ruler of the days of the week. Anyway, Wednesday, our Mercury Day. On Wednesday, we find that Mars is just sliding past Venus. And remember, we talked a little bit about that to begin with, probably a lot. But it's just caught up to and it's sliding past Venus on this Mercury Day. But because they're both moving at, Mars is moving just a hint faster than Venus is, they're staying very close proximity to each other and will be for a while. At the same time, the moon has been racing around the zodiac and it reaches the phase that we commonly refer to as the full moon. So Wednesday, our Mercury Day, when our thinking processes are percolating as they should be, we come to the full moon, and the moon is in Leo because the sun is still traveling through Aquarius. And the sun is basically, it rules Leo. So let me just read some thoughts and then we'll see if we can develop from there. As with any full moon, there's a maximal pull of all the tidal processes on the planet as balance of that masculine solar force, the sun, to rule is diametrically opposed to the nurturing embrace of the lunar mother. As all liquids are affected in this process, we might sense some slightly stronger lunar pull in the sun's natural sign of Leo. Since we humans are about 70% liquid, is it any wonder that the full moon often triggers certain lunatic fringes to surface? That imbalance in our inner tidal flow is at work. But the moon, a watery planet, is this particular full moon happens near the end of the Leo sign, opposite from the sun, which is near the end of the Aquarian sign. And the moon in a fire sign, it's, some may say, well, it may not be necessarily comfortable there, but it's still the moon. It's still the second brightest object in the sky after the sun, although it goes through phases. And in Leo's the sign of creativity, taking chances. These are very Leonian factors. So this particular, think about the full moon. Most people, it's a full moon. The full moon's up. We get wild hairs. Well, a Leo full moon, the wild hairs of Leo standing up at attention is a unique way to consider that what Leo thrives on is attention. The Leo aspect within each one of us gets excited by putting itself out there, testing the waters, give me a stage to perform on. It doesn't matter where it is. It doesn't matter what you think. You may be delighted by what I say. You may be horrified by what I say. As a Leo person that's being creative, either one of those will work just fine. I don't care. As long as you recognize that I am performing and, pay attention to me. So this particular full moon in Leo it would not be too surprising to have people taking chances. You know, gambling is one of the Leonian considerations. Oh, and with any luck, uh, all of you that have placed your bets on either the Bengals or the Rams in the football game that happened last weekend. I'm using last weekend, even though the game hasn't transpired yet. Hopefully, you got some of that gambling uh, uh, chutzpah out of your system. We all have levels that we play that gambling, taking chances game. Some people are just a little more dramatic, and you might find them racing cars around. There's a good sun, fire sign kind of energy. But with, Mars gets excited by that kind of stuff too. And so you can kind of see the mix of these planetary flavors as they, percolate to the surface periodically, which is what astrological chart considerations do. Is they say, okay, what's in play now? When we look at your chart, where was your Mars when you were born? What's it doing now? And how are they talking to each other? And what part of you is being stimulated by this Mars in Capricorn that's taking place right now? There's in traditional astrology, the planets become a little bit more excited by being in different signs. Like Mars is a fire sign. So in any of the fire signs, Mars is kind of like, woohoo, I'm excited. Mars rules Aries, but it also rules Scorpio, water, fire and water. You wouldn't think that thing, yet it can happen that the Scorpio energy within somebody can percolate quite dramatically, just as easily as a fire sign might. And so when the Capricorn sign, which is where Mars is, and just coming out of bounds for the last month, is a sign that it is, it's exalted in. Mars is happy as a clam to be in Capricorn. It for whatever reason, but I couldn't give you the traditional reasons why that is in a short summation that would do it justice. Let's just say that, okay, we have our full moon on Sunday, on Wednesday, and the next moment that I pay attention to that's coming to us for this next week is that on Friday, Mars and Venus, are we surprised? They're moving in lockstep at a little less than a degree a day, but they're just right there. Boom, boom. They're staying together. And on Thursday and Friday, Jupiter is forming a sextile, which is 60 degrees, with Uranus from Pisces to Taurus. So perhaps there's some cahooting going on of unpredictability in our more profound conversations with Source. Not to be downplayed, there are likely large scale factors, that's Jupiter at work, in this that are vying for our attention. To add some emphasis to the equation, the sun shifts on Friday and Saturday from Aquarius into Pisces. So on that time frame, what we're looking at, we have Jupiter and Neptune, the two rulers of Pisces, moving through Pisces. Neptune will take, 7 years or something to go through Pisces. Jupiter takes a year to go through Pisces. This is a unique Jupiterian Pisces dance, because Jupiter already touched into Pisces last year for a brief time before going back into Aquarius. And this time, as it's coming through Pisces, it's moving in high speed. And sometime in May, Jupiter will be moving on into Aries. Normally Jupiter, and it takes about a year for Jupiter to go through any sign, but the experience for this particular year of Jupiter going through Pisces has involved a touch into Pisces, back into Aquarius, and then a race back through Pisces. But Jupiter is big. It's the largest planet in our solar system. It means growth. It means expansion. It means pushing the limits. You know, you think of Saturn is containing the limits of Jupiter, most likely, and Jupiter is kind of like, get those limits out of the way. I want to be big. So wherever Jupiter's involved in any equations, don't think small, don't act small. And Jupiter, in the process of forming this sextile with Uranus, sextile is a 60-degree aspect, and it involves any of these signs happen to represent certain elements. Like Aries is a fire sign, Taurus, which is where Jupiter is an earth sign. Jupiter is in Pisces is Pisces is a water sign. So we have water and earth signs. There's an affinity between them that they're able to work effectively with each other. Air and fire signs, same kind of things. When you start getting, air and or fire and water together, they don't necessarily swim in the same pool creatively without some steam, edginess and stuff. But anyway, Jupiter in water sign, Uranus in an earth sign, they speak to you. That's that sextile. 60 degrees says, it's half of a trine, which is 120 degrees, which are planets in the same kind of element, earth to earth, water to water, fire to fire, and so on. So Jupiter it's in a sign that it is the idea of speaking to source is let me just read you the sentence and we'll carry on from there. There's an addition to add some emphasis into the equation. The sun shifts into Pisces. There is the addition to vitality being stirred into the oceanic level of awareness, Pisces, conversations with source undertakes. So conversations with source might be more readily understood as a form of meditative interaction. Yet it would be an error to recognize influences transpiring just as effectively in our daily life. That means you don't have to go into some form of meditation to actually be able to, that isn't the only place that you can tap into this kind of energy. It can show up in your daily life experiences. You may be, tooling along, going on a walk in a park and stuff, and discover that somebody else is walking almost in synchronous steps with you. And then upon demonstrating a recognition of and between the two of you, may discover that the reason why that's transpiring is there's a larger energy that both of you are tuned into simultaneously, that it has been waiting for that kind of energy of your two interactions to recognize each other. And a conversation is struck up and you discover a similarity between the two of you. Here we go. We got our Mars and Venus at work again. And this Jupiter Uranus is saying, possibly there's a very deep and profound place within you, the Pisces part of you, that Jupiter is stimulating, touching that Uranus down in Taurus. And Uranus stirs energies up. It's the rebellious rebel kind of energy that wants to shake things up, and earthquakes, thunder, these are, yeah, that makes Mars happy too. Kind of process is, it's exciting and stuff. So Jupiter and Uranus speaking very effectively with each other bring in the Piscean side of what is the deepest level of my awareness that I can tap into. And Uranus, taking its 8-year journey through Taurus, is saying, asking us, Taurus is Mother Earth. Are we paying attention to the experience of our participation as a part of the natural world that Mother Earth has provided for us to be in? Is it, are we a harmonious generation of that Mother Earth nature, or are we just utilizing its resources without any thought behind what it took in order for those resources to be where they were into what it is that we are consuming? And what are the ramifications of what it took to get those resources, not only from where they were, but to us? What is the cost factor to that? And that Jupiter's saying, are you thinking deeply and profoundly enough about that equation so that we can continue to exist long term on the planet? Because as human beings, we are utilizing resources at a phenomenal rate on this planet. And it begs some questions as to the footprint that humanity is placing down. One other factor, and this goes back to Pluto. When the United States put together its Declaration of Independence on, there are varying dates that seem to, but we celebrated on July 4th from 1776. And the chart for the United States set for July 4th, 1776 at, I don't even know what time it was, but there's a chart called the Sibley chart. And back in 1776, Pluto was at 27 degrees, 33 minutes of Capricorn, which on Sunday this week, Pluto will again be at 27 degrees, 33 minutes of Capricorn. This is known as the Pluto return, 246 years. And the thing about Pluto is that with its slow movement, the kinds of considerations that are represented by Pluto work out very deliberately and slowly over long cycles and the thing about those outer planets, Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, is they move slow, and a lot of people might not daily tap into a Plutonic kind of energy, but it's still at work. And from 2008 until about 2025, Pluto has been and will continue to be going through the sign of Capricorn. Capricorn is the sign that has the most affinity with leaders and rulership and rules and regulations and governments and big business. These are all Capricorn flavored experiences that through this long cycle of the Plutonic dance through Capricorn have been under pressure to alter and possibly allow aspects of how they function to be added into the compost, to recycle elements of both physical and other kinds of energy back into the fold so that something new can be born. So when you look at the Sibley chart for the United States, Pluto returning to itself it's a marker. That's asking us if we really are in tune with what it is that this theoretical great nation should be about. That's not a minor question. There's one other factor that it just kind of floats around and bounces through. Probably similar to the experience of tuning into and out of the plutonic kind of energy is what is it that I, as one of the human beings living in our fortunate modern culture with all the benefits that have been created by this particular consumer-based system that we live in, might I be willing to alleviate from what it is that I want or desire, the ramifications of too much greed, too much consumption are enormous. The planet, remember what I said about the body being made up of all the elements on the planet, and when we die we recycle, that body recycles back into the planetary elements. As a consumer-based society, our consumption level right now is it's putting a strain on the ability of the resources that we're utilizing to such an extent that, you know, if we don't curtail in some fashion our wants and desires, we basically are going to shortchange ourselves of the ability to continue living on this planet at the same level that we are right now. And people may ask, well, what can I do? You know, we have a system, and the system provides us with so much, you know, often way more than we really need. And the sales paradigm of the consumptive society that we live in is its survival depends on our consumption, on being, you know, good consumers. And often we don't recognize that, yeah, we can do something. As consumers, it is our demands that set in motion what it is that will be provided for us. And if we can, in no small matter, contain, there's our Saturn, that ability to not need so much. You know, how many houses does a person really need? How much food do we throw away? Are we putting back enough of what we have obtained from the earth in an appropriate fashion that it can be reutilized for what it is that we really need, rather than just filling up landfills? How many landfills does it take? Anyway, just some philosophizing going through my head that I thought I'd share with you. Next week, we'll be in Pisces land. Actually, the sun goes into Pisces near the end of this week. So Pisces it's the deepest and most profound zone of the zodiac. And I trust that this new format I'm using, even though I can tell it's already been a little longer than the other ones, gives you a slightly broader perspective of, you know, what it is that I have to go through as an astrologer, paying attention to the spaghetti dance of the planets on that two-dimensional surface to draw out the actual meanings of how those planets are communicating with each other, and just hoping that we tune in enough to that energy to participate with it as you know, as vehicles to be able to utilize that energy creatively in our daily lives, to not to the detriment of what it is that we came to experience here on planet Earth. There's enough resources on planet Earth for everybody on the planet to live very, very well. It's just unfortunate that it has been absconced to such a level that only minimal amounts of it are available, and getting to be less and less as the resources get sequestered away from the majority of us. So Pisces, what does our spirit say? How do you interact with your soul? Do you know that you are a soul? We'll get into this next week. Anyway, we're on the waning end of Aquarius now. I am an Aquarius, and I look forward to the dance as it unfolds next week. Ciao for now.